All right, let's get into it. Today, we're going to talk about something, well, something pretty unsettling. It's called mass psychosis. It's this phenomenon where entire societies just seem to lose their minds all at once, and you see seemingly rational people suddenly start believing things that are completely irrational. How does that happen?
To really kick things off, let's look at this quote from Gustave Le Bon. Man, this just perfectly sets the stage for everything we're about to discuss. What he's saying is that there's this fundamental vulnerability deep inside the collective human mind that we often prefer a comforting lie over a difficult truth.
And the psychologist Carl Jung, he took this idea even further. He argued that the biggest threats to humanity aren't things like earthquakes or disease. No, he called them psychic epidemics. The real danger, he believed, comes from inside our own minds. It is a seriously chilling thought, right? That we are our own worst enemies. So what exactly is this internal threat Jung was so worried about? What is this epidemic of madness?
Well, to put it simply, it's a psychic epidemic. It's a point in time when a huge chunk of society just loses its grip on what's real, and delusion kind of becomes the new normal. It's like a social contagion, but for irrationality.
And look, this is not just some abstract theory. History is filled with terrifying real-world examples. Just think about the witch hunts that swept across Europe and America. In some villages, they killed so many women there were almost none left. Or, fast forward to the 20th century, the rise of totalitarianism. We're talking millions of people embracing ideologies that were, looking back, obviously and completely destructive.
So what Jung saw was that when a society falls into this state, people go through this profound and really dangerous change. They become way more irrational, way more emotional, and, this is the critical part, they can do things as a group, commit crimes that they would never, ever dream of doing on their own. To really wrap our heads around how this can happen to a whole society, we've got to zoom in first. We need to look at the individual mind. What is it that pushes a single person over the edge into psychosis?
Well, according to the psychiatrist Silvano Arietti, it's usually a two-step process. First, there's this phase of just pure panic, a flood of fear, anxiety, total confusion. Then, to get away from that terrifying feeling, the mind literally builds a new reality. Arietti called it psychotic insight. It's a delusional story that suddenly makes the world seem to make sense again, but it comes at the cost of losing touch with reality itself.
Okay, so that's the blueprint for one person, right? Panic, followed by a delusional story to calm the panic. But how do you scale that up to millions? Well, the architects of totalitarianism, they know this blueprint. They've weaponized this exact psychological vulnerability, and they apply it to an entire population to trigger what we can call the modern psychosis of totalitarianism. In a totalitarian state, society basically splits into two groups. And you know what? Both of them go through this deeply unhealthy, pathological change. On one side, you've got the rulers. They're lifted up to this godlike status, and they start to believe they can control everything. Then, on the other side, you have the ruled, and they regress. They become almost like children, dependent, obedient. Both sides are completely lost in a delusion.
The brilliant scholar Hannah Arendt, she put it perfectly. She didn't see this as just another political system. No, for her, it was a full-on assault on what it means to be human. It's a system literally designed to turn healthy minds into sick ones.
So this brings up a huge question. How do aspiring rulers actually pull this off? How do they methodically turn an entire population of sound minds sick?
Well, the method actually has a name, and it's a chilling one: menticide. The term comes from Joost Meerloo, and it literally means a killing of the mind. It's an organized, systematic attack on the very ability of a population to think for itself. And it's methodical. It's a playbook, really. First, you sow fear. Meerloo called it unleashing waves of terror, these calculated bursts of panic. Then you amplify that with propaganda and just outright lies to get everyone confused. Next, you isolate people from each other, breaking down social bonds, which makes them much more vulnerable for the final steps, censorship, and just overloading their senses until critical thinking, well, it just shuts down. So once a population is just beaten down, they're confused, they're isolated, they're terrified, they become hopeless. At that point, they crave a return to order more than anything else. And right at that moment of peak desperation, that's when the totalitarians make their move.
They offer a solution, an escape from the chaos, a return to an ordered world. But the price, oh, the price is steep. The price is your freedom, your individuality, your ability to rely on yourself. The price is to descend completely into the totalitarian psychosis.
Now, I know this all sounds incredibly bleak, but it leads us to the most important question of all. Can this madness be resisted? Is there a path back to sanity?
According to Jung, the answer is yes, but the first step is always individual. It starts with you. You have to bring order to your own mind first. Because by freeing yourself from the grip of the group madness, you become what he called a beacon of hope for everyone else.
But your own sanity is just the beginning. The resistance has to be just as multi-pronged as the attack. This means spreading the truth to fight the propaganda. It means using humor and ridicule to undermine would-be tyrants. And it means building what the Czech dissident Václav Havel called parallel structures, a really cool concept we're about to get into.
So what Havel meant by parallel structures was this: you create spaces where a different kind of life is possible. Think of them as organizations or communities that exist inside the totalitarian state but operate morally outside of it. They're like these little islands of freedom and sanity.
Ultimately, this whole struggle is psychological. And the philosopher Albert Camus just captured it perfectly here. He said that in an unfree world, the most powerful act of rebellion is simply to become a free individual. Your very existence becomes a protest.
And that leaves us all with a final, really provocative question. Because the choice, it seems, is always ours to make. Are we going to choose the comfortable, easy delusions that are offered to us by those who want control? Or will we choose the much harder, but ultimately liberating path of freedom and personal responsibility? The future of a free society might just depend on our answer.